Well, hello. So the purpose of this video is really just to walk you through some options for enhancing our fixed layout ebook. And I'm going to focus for this video on the graphics. So we're going to look at how we make images enlarge because that's not naturally part of the fixed layout format. And we've got two options for that, so I'm going to go through that. I'm also going to talk about transitions and how we can make things appear on the screen when we reach that page. Now that's the first thing I'm going to start with, so let's take a look then. Okay, now here we are. Here's my beginning spread for A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I've put an image all the way across the spread. Don't forget this is actually constructed from two single pages, so we are using the original print version, which is a portrait shaped book with two with pages side by side in a spread, and we're actually going to make this ebook into a landscape shaped ebook by bolting these two pages together. So we've actually got now this first page, which is effectively two pages side by side, and I've placed an image all the way to the very edge of this, and then I've reorganized my title over the top of it. So rather than just this image appearing, I'm going to now make this into an animation. And I do this by selecting the object that I want to animate. Let's just shift this out of the way. And I'm going to go to my animation menu. Now, a word of important message about this. I have in my system, I have a work space which I've organized so that I've got all my icons, as you can see down on the right hand side. But if you're looking for all of these menus that we're using within this process of creating this enhanced ebook, you really need to look under Window and see that we have a menu called Interactive, and then in there we have, as you can see, animation, buttons, hyperlinks, media, etc., etc. That's where you're going to find all of these things. But I do advise you, to organize your workspace so that these are icons readily available to you. So as you can see then, selecting that image, I'm now going to my animation menu, which is here. So the animation menu basically gives me a number of preset options. So I'm going to choose one of those preset options, which is just a very simple fade in. So this image will then fade in when we reach this page, because as you can see, by default, the event that this is happening on is on page load. We're only going to be using that at the moment, but later on you'll see some other events that we can make use of. But that's what's going on there. Only other thing to mention is that down here we should make sure that we hide until animated. So in other words, it's not going to show until we reach the page, and then it will, as you'll see in a moment, appear. So we're going to hit that. There are various options to do with the duration, the delay, and all of this kind of thing. However, what I would say is that what you're going to find on many of these menus under this interactivity umbrella menu, you're going to find down in the bottom left a little icon which represents the preview spread for the EPUB. So in other words, we can preview what this is going to look like without having to to export it each time. Now that is a menu, as I say, an icon on this particular panel, but it's also available to us generally. So if I go to this icon here, I've actually put that on my workspace. Again, you're going to find it under the interactivity parent menu. So let's just click on that. Right, this opens up. Now you will find probably the first time you run this is going to be quite a small window. Now we need to actually play this preview. And there you can see the image fading up. Okay, so we've done that for that one. Now what we can do is to just simply do the same thing for what I've currently got as a group. So I've got this group object here, which is the title and William Shakespeare, obviously. What I can do is then with this group, again, use the animation menu. And once again, I'm going to my preset. This time, my preset, I'm going to use something different. I'm going to fly in from the top. And I'm going to, again, use on page load. Again, hide until animated. Now this will happen more or less at the same time, but let's just check to see what that looks like. We have to hit the play button. Okay, so as you can see, first of all fades up, and then we get the title coming down from the top. Now the thing is that what we can do is we can use the timing menu, and again, if I just select this item for the animation, you can see that I've got this little very tiny timing panel icon at the bottom. And if I click on there, you can see that on page load, we've now got these two items. One is the image, one is the title. Now it is possible for, I mean, it's not particularly to our advantage right now, but we can, when we have multiple things animating on a page, what we can do is to set the timing. So for example, the title, I can now change this to, or give this a delay with increments of 0.25 of a second. So you see it's quite finely adjusted. Just because I want to demonstrate this and exaggerate it a little bit, I'll go up to 1.5 seconds. That's going to be quite a noticeable delay. And once again, we'll actually check to see what this looks like. So there we have it then, a delay, quite a significant delay. All right, so basically that's just simply looking at transitions. I will also point out to you on the screen now, you can just see this green line. Now I'm not actually going to do anything with that at the moment because it doesn't really make a lot of sense for this object to do anything other than just simply drop down. But you'll see later on we can actually direct things and actually make changes to that line. So that line, as you can see, it has a number of points that we can actually edit. So we could make something appear, you know, sweep in from over a curve, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to go there for this particular object because that doesn't seem to be appropriate. Okay, now let's go down to look at one of our images, this one here. Now this image here, what I've done with this image, and I just, you know, I've already actually done this process, so I want to explain to you what is going on here and then just go into another image for you and actually do that one myself. But let's just show you what I've done. So if you remember, we can make images appear by simply making them into buttons, but in this particular case what I've done, and this is what I want to show you how to do, I'm going to now actually play this on this particular page. So we have our image here, and when I click this, you'll see that rather than just appearing, it actually animates on the screen. So you see that what we've done is, rather than just make the button invoke the appearance or making the visibility of this larger version, we actually are animating it. So let me show you how that all works by doing it for another image. Okay, so I've come now to this page where I have a picture of the Globe Theatre, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is to show you two different ways that we can make this enlarge when we click over the small version of it. Now I've already put a large version into another layer. So here's the large version that we can see sitting over the top. And just to remind you, the reason that we use the layers, this helps us to enable us to hide the large version, which is obviously sitting over the top of the small version, because I can't get to the small version at the moment unless I hide that layer. Anyway, the way that we work on this is really just to work backwards. So we're starting with this large version, which of course we want to disappear when we click it. Once we enlarge it, we want to make it disappear by clicking over it. So that's the first thing that we do. So we turn this into a button, first of all. Just to make it into a normal button, and I'm going to give it the name of large globe. And when I click, or when I release it or tap it, I then want the action to be show, hide buttons and forms. And of course the only one that I've got available to me at the moment is the one that I've just named, and I want to therefore click that little visibility icon to put the line through the eye, meaning that's no longer going to be visible when I click it. So that's essentially what I need to do there. I'm also just going to hide until triggered. So this won't actually appear on the screen until I trigger it through the small icon, or sorry, small button that I'm going to make now. So let's now go to my layers so that I can hide that temporarily. Then I'm going to my small version, and it's just the image that I'm interested in actually. So I'm going to click on the image itself, and I'm going to turn that into a button. So again, going to my buttons, that's going to be a simple button with the name of globe, like that. And what do I want it to do? I want it to show, hide buttons and forms again, and this time I want to make large globe visible. Now you don't need to do anything to the button that I've just created, the small version called globe. I don't do anything to that, so that's simply why it's got the cross there, or the X. No action required for that. So that should actually do the job. However, we can't actually review this with our EPUB simulator, if you like, because we can't see. We have to make sure that the layer is showing before we do that. And that is the same for when you export to the eventual EPUB. You can't, it won't work unless you show your hidden layers. Okay, so now that we've got that on the screen, I'm going to go to my EPUB previewer and actually play this now. And if I now click over this, it should now appear, and then it disappears when I click over it, as you can see. That's quite simple. That works. Now, the alternative way of doing it, which makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more compelling, is to make, rather than make the image just simply appear on the top, we can actually bring it onto the screen with an animation of some sort. Now let's actually do that as an alternative. So again, the first thing we should do is to work from the large version first of all. So I've selected that button there, and I'm now going to go to my animation menu, and I'm going to choose one of the presets. So in this case, we'll actually fly this in from the right, like so. So it's going to come in from the right. I'm also going to, well, there are other settings that we've got here, and I'm going to turn off on-page load. We don't want it to come in on-page load because obviously we don't want it to be there at all until we click something to invoke it. So I'm now going to hide until animated as well, so it won't be on the screen when we arrive on this page. So that's done that job now. What I need to do now is to go to my layers and turn that layer off. So now what we do is go back to this button that we've created and make a change to the way that this button works. We're going to turn off this version of simply making the button, the large version, appear. We're going to hit the minus sign, in other words, to delete that particular action, and make a new action this time, which is I'm going to choose animation. So this one here, with this one here, it's actually found an animation that I've already got, called large globe, and what I'm going to do is to play that animation. So that's what's going to happen when I click the button now, instead of it just appearing. So let's actually just review this, but remember, we always still have to show the layers. So I'm going to put the layer back, and then I'm going to actually show this working. So let's actually play the preview. So again, the same thing, it's not appearing on the screen yet. When we click this, now it appears in this with this animation rather than simply appearing on the screen. So the button is still, that we still have it as a button, so it still has an action on itself, which is to hide itself, like so. Like so. Now there's just a couple of other things that we should talk about here. Something that we can also consider, and this really just depends on the size of the image. Now let's just imagine for the moment that you've got a portrait size image, an image that only really might fill the screen from top to bottom, but not left to right. So what you might want to do is to hide the background, and I'm going to use this as an example because what I want to do is to actually hide my running headers at the top and my my page numbers, but I also want to make sure that when I click outside this image, that also makes it disappear. So effectively what we can do is make this button grow, and the way that we can do that is to select, again, I've got the image selected. Right, so I've now, what I'm going to do is to put a blend around it. In fact, I'm going to use my effects menu, and I'm going to put an outer glow on this. But actually first I must make sure that I use the image itself, not the button. That's the point. Okay, so let's actually just double click on that because it's the object, not the button, that we need to put this on. So let's select the actual object, go to our effects menu, and then put an outer glow using something like this. So I've actually, as you can see, I've actually increased the size. I've turned it into normal mode, and I've put white around it. It doesn't have to be white. You could make it black. You could make it whatever color you like. But essentially, what we're doing is we're growing the button, or we're growing the object, really. And if I now click OK to that, we can now actually review it and see what it looks like. Okay, so as you can see, it's filled the screen with the picture, but it's also actually grown it to a certain extent. That's the way you might want to look at it, because it's not only that it's put this white round it to cover the content, it also means that you can click outside the image and it will also disappear, which is actually going to make a lot more sense if you've got a small image in the center, or just a portrait shape image. Okay, so for the final part of this little video here, I'm going to now explore the idea of making a sequence of images. And the way that we do this is to make some preparations first of all. You do need to make sure that you've got some images that will work in a sequence. And that really means that they need to be relatively near in size, that is to say proportionate at least, more important than size, so that as we go through them, they're not necessarily, you know, changing the shape of the window or the slideshow area. I mean, you know, obviously you can be creative with that if you want to edit the images where you've got some of the portrait shape and some of the landscape shape. You might need to, you know, turn them into or put them into a square shape so that they all consistently appear in the same way. But I leave that part of it to you. I have already done something like that, as you'll see in a moment. So I've got a sequence of images of Shakespeare portraits, which I'm going to now show you how to make into a sequence. So where do I want to do this? Well, I want to do it here in this place here. So let me just move this object out of the way. I think I'm using the wrong, here we are. So I'm just going to move this out of the way because I'm going to use this space here to do this work. Now what I need to do first of all is to just simply take an example of one of these images that I've got. So I'm going to place this image on the screen, on the page. I've got my images in here, so let me just go to my images folder, and in my portraits, and I've got a sequence of images that I've created. So I've actually cropped these all to be virtually the same size. Now ignore the fact that I've named them you know, with a similar naming convention. That's not really something that we need to do, but I'm just simply going to take one of these images. I'm placing this onto my page like this. Now I want it to be in the middle here, like around about this kind of size, like so. And that's really my sample. As I say, they're all virtually the same size and proportion. That's my sample. So what I need to do now is to create an empty text frame, or an empty graphics frame, I should say, where these images will fit. So I'm going to use this tool over here, and I'm going to draw over the top of this, and you should see that it will snap to the right size, like so. So that's actually now the same size, not quite actually. Let's just make sure that we do that again. Yeah, and that's better. Okay, I could do with actually zooming in a bit here. So That's a bit better. Okay, so essentially I've now got this empty frame, and I can actually get rid of that. So this is my empty frame, but now because of I'm actually only going for 4 images in this sequence. You might want to, think about doing something longer than that. But the point is, I need now 3 further copies of this. But before I do that, I want to make sure that when I place an image into this box, which is the way that I'm going to do this, that it will automatically resize the image to fit into that frame. So therefore, before I duplicate this, I need to now go to my for this, when I've selected this image, I need to go to Object, and I need to go to Fitting, and I need to say Frame Fitting Options, and I want this to be fit fill the frame proportionally. So I want to fill it proportionally. And I'm going to click OK to that. Now what I want to do is to actually duplicate this. Now I could, if I was just, it's possible that I could just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. That would be absolutely fine too. But there is a way of doing this so that you automatically make a sort of arrangement of these objects. And we do this through here, where we actually go to Edit, and we use Step and Repeat. Now with Step and Repeat, you can see I've already got this previewing. So let me just turn that off so I can explain it a bit more carefully. We've actually need to make 3 copies of this because we want I'm using 4 images in my sequence, so I've already got one, so I just want to make 3 more to go with it. So I'm adding 3. I need to say what my offset horizontally and vertical is. This is not important other than the fact that you just need to be able to place your images into these separate frames. You'll see what I mean in a minute, but if you make this the space between them too small, then it's quite hard to see where to place the images. You will understand what I'm saying. Let me actually just preview that again so you can see what I mean. So we've actually got these objects set on a sort of offset by this amount. In fact, we can increase that slightly, and it all depends on how much space you've got. It doesn't have to be on the page. You could actually work on the pasteboard as well. If you've got a lot of images, you might want to increase the size of the pasteboard. But anyway, not a problem. That's the way that actually works. And if I now click OK, so we've actually created those now. So now what we need to do is to place the images into that. And this is something that you may not have come across before, but you can actually place multiple objects. So I've got my images here, so it's all a question of really sort of making sure you've got access to a folder. It would be a little bit complicated if you were going from one folder to another, selecting these different images. Put them all together in one folder makes life a lot easier. So I'm selecting that, and now what I want to do is to plop them into these different spaces. So as you can see, my icon has a little number 4 there. So the one there's one at the bottom, so I'm going to click into that space, and then I'm going to go to the next one, and the next one, and finally that one. So we've now put them into there, and I'm now going to select all of those objects together, like so. So I've now selected them all, because what I want to do now is to put them on top of one another. And the way that we do that is to use this alignment menu, which you'll find up at the top in this panel here. If you can't find it, there is an align menu as well. But essentially we just need to use this one here, which is align the horizontal centers like that, and then we need to align the vertical centers. So that sticks them on top of one another. Don't click away from here though, because you want to continue to have them all selected, because what we now need to do is to go into I'll show you where to find it, that's probably the best thing. Go to Window, go to Interactive, you need to go to Object States. And now what we want to do is to actually create a new object state, and that will automatically put those different objects into this one. So we've got one object with 4 different states. In fact, if you just click, you can actually see through them like this. Right, now let's just move that over to put it in the middle. Now there are two options, well, more than two options really, but I'm just going to show you two different options for this. The first simple way really is to create a button that sits on the top of this. So if I'm just going to go to my rectangular frame tool, and I'm just simply going to click, I'm just going to simply create, a button that sits over the top of this image, like so. So it's sitting over the top. I'm going to make that into a button, and that button will have a particular action or an event. That action for the event will be to go to the next state. So going to the next state means that it's choosing something on this page that is a multi-state object. As you can see, I've only got that one, so there's no confusion there. And it's simply going to the next state. And we don't want to stop at the last state. We just want to turn it into a kind of circular motion, really. So all that's going to happen, and if I actually preview it, I click over it, and it simply goes through the sequence like this. Now, obviously, from a usability point of view, you really need to tell the users that this is available to you. So I would have a message here to say, you know, click on the image to see the sequence of portraits of Shakespeare or something like that. And also the other thing is that we probably should put a caption for each one of them. Now we can do that quite easily, although I don't want to spend too long actually typing things in at this stage, but I will actually just show you how to add captions into this. So let's actually turn that off. And also what I want to do is just to hide or shift that button away for the moment, so it's not getting in my way of my multi-state object. So here's my multi-state object. I've actually got a menu for it, I thought. Maybe not. Okay, let's actually go to my interactive object states. Okay, there are my different object states. And now what I'm going to do is just simply create, and you'll just have to forgive me because I don't know the names of these, I don't know the captions here really. Well, in fact, what we can do is we can use this one here as an example. So let me actually just put that here. And I'm going to just copy that. And then I'm going to go to my object state, and I'm going to go into this state here. So that, as you can see, I've selected that. So now, having copied that text box, I go to this menu top right, and I'm going to paste into that state. So, so this object now, let's just move this one out of the way. This object here, I just need to move that down here. That's in that object state. I would then need to do the same for each of these objects. So in other words, over here, I'm going to, I mean, for example, let me just, you know, type in anything in here. I don't, you know, I need to do some research and to see what that actually needs to be. So I'm going to go to my object itself again. I'm going to go to this one here. I've selected that. So this time I'm going to select this. Copy this, go to this state, and I'm going to paste into that state. So again, that object should now be part of this state here. And if we actually go through the objects, you should be able to see. So that's that one, although it's actually got one in front of it, and that's that one there. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so this is my second one, blah, 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 that should be in there. And now if I go to the different states, so I've got that one there and I've got that one there. So you can actually paste into the state something else to add to it. So that would be a good example of using captions. I don't know why we've got this here, where we are on this state here. We've accidentally added that as well. So I just need to make sure that I don't do that. Now the other way of making the sequence work, apart from rather than using this button here, is we could actually have separate buttons which actually go through the sequence. So for example, you could put a triangle maybe either side. Just simply create a triangle. Let's actually see if I can find a polygon tool. So I'm going over here to my polygon tool, just double click, and then I'm going to use a three-sided polygon, like so. Let's just draw that over here. Now we'll actually make sure that it has a color. Let's fill it with a red, for example, for the moment. And we'll have no stroke on it either, so we will turn the stroke off so it'll not have any outline. And then what we're going to do is to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it and put it here. I'm going to make it smaller actually as well. It doesn't need to be very big, like so. Okay, now I'm going to turn that into a button. So where are our buttons? We've got them here somewhere. Okay, that's going to be my button, and that button is going to have a simple action. Let's actually call this back. And I'm going to have the action on this, or what actually is going to happen is that it's going to go to the previous state. So that one's going to go to the previous state of that particular multi-state object. And now I'm simply going to duplicate that. So I'm going to make a copy of that and then paste that over here. And then what we're going to do is to make that into the other direction. So it's going to be pointing to the right. I'm going to line this up along here. Now we just need to make the change to this particular button. The action on this particular one, I'm going to give it a different name actually as well. Forward. I'm going to turn that into a forward button, and I'm also going to give it a different action. This time it's going to go to the next state of that particular multi-state object. Okay, so let's actually have a look and see how that works. So here's my multi-state object, and that will take me back through the list, and this will take me forwards through the list. In actual fact, there is another thing that we could do, but this is only really if you have a large number of objects in your multi-state object. I wouldn't say it was particularly relevant for me at the moment, but what we could do, if we just look at this button again here, we're looking at this button, we could here have a stop at the first state. So in other words, it'll go along through the sequence and stop at the first one. That's what that will do, whereas this one will go to the last state. So in other words, it just goes through to the end, and then that's the end of it. Otherwise, it'll just rotate round and keep going round in a circle. So yeah, so that completes my my video of just showing you a few things that you can do with graphics in your interactive fixed layout ebook.